Afternoon, John.
Hey, Marty.
Good to see you.
It's good to see you too.
How's my favorite rock star?
Rocking it. It's just like stellar. I'm stellar.
Pretty good. Pretty good. Good shit.
Yes.
Marty Keller here in Sacramento, John Donovan in Oceanside, California. This is our weekly podcast on accountability practice. For those of you who may be checking in with us for the first time, John is the crazy guy, the wild and crazy guy who came up with this practice. And I'm the wild and crazy guy who thought this might be something worth learning and mastering.
Right.
And so we're coming up on our second anniversary of doing this podcast next month. So we've been in these weekly conversations off and on for a couple of years now.
Oh my God.
I know.
That seems like, wow.
Yeah, the end of June is going to be our second anniversary.
Oh, wow.
So
very good.
There'll be a party of some kind.
Mm-hmm.
But in the meantime, before we rush ahead to party land,
Right.
one of the things that we like to do here on this dialogue, this conversation that John and I conduct, and sometimes we do it with guests. We had a special guest last week, and hopefully have more in the future. We like to just explore aspects of the accountability practice. Sometimes we just start all over, start from the beginning, say, look at what is accountability, how does it work, why would I want to do it? Sometimes we take a particular aspect, you can't quite see it, or I can't quite see it in focus, but behind John, there's a whiteboard with a whole number of elements that he uses when he teaches this, and he works with people on the accountability practice. And any one of those is a topic for conversation. But the one I wanted to raise today is one that I hear people talking about with more frequency these days, and comes under the heading of the word safety. Safety.
Mm-hmm.
And so the question is, am I feeling safe? Am I feeling safe? And as I was thinking about this, John, I mentioned to you, it reminded me of what I learned years ago in the hierarchy of needs that Abraham Maslow, the humanist psychologist in the 60s and 70s, came up with. And his theory was that we progress through the meeting of our needs from the time we're born till the time we die, basically. And that these needs are in a nested hierarchy, and we have to get the first level needs met before we can proceed to the second level. We have to get the second level needs met before we proceed to the third level.
Well, why don't you go ahead and throw that?
All right, so let me throw that up there so we can just walk through that real quickly or whatever. And I always found this notion compelling, and it certainly made sense to me in my own life, that we start off with wanting to make sure that our physical needs are met, food, shelter, warmth when it's cold, coolness when it's hot, those kinds of things. And once we get those needs met, and notice that as human beings, those needs have to be provided to us by someone else. The infant comes into the world completely incapable of meeting his or her physical needs. Right. In fact, most of these needs in the bottom part of I'd say the first three bands require interaction with other people. So the second level is safety. And the people that put this particular chart together included in the idea of safety, security of the body, security of employment, security of resources, security of morality, security of our families, of health, of property. And then once we feel secure in those realms, then we move on to work on the love and belonging needs, friendship, family, sexual intimacy. And when we secure those, we can then be ready to, or open to, working on the esteem needs. And then once we achieve some level of confidence or competence in that, then we move on to self-actualization. the creating of ourselves by deliberate and conscious activities. So this is a proposal by Maslow. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. It just is a way to maybe begin this conversation. So what's interesting to me is that when we find ourselves in the need of support, like adult children of alcoholics, or maybe even AA itself, or in the accountability practice, how many of us are still working on that second level, the safety needs.
Yeah.
So maybe we can start there, and you know, let us know. Let me know some of your thoughts about that.
You know, as we normally do, you know, pick a topic or something comes to one of us right before the podcast, and then we decide to talk about it, going in blank, not blank, but going in without an agenda. That's for me. I don't even come to a group with an agenda. And as you were going through those hierarchy of needs, the family of origin dysfunction, childhood trauma, let me say me, I, in my childhood, didn't get enough food.
Okay.
So, and I didn't have a stable environment. I didn't get my hunger needs met, or my nurturing needs met. And children are born with mirror neurons, and they look to the caretaker for sense of self, or soaking up energy about how it works. And I didn't even get that to build on. And we talked before about developmental procedure or psychology, which is a part of psychology that isn't like well known or talked about a lot. So having said all that, what I've learned in my recovery, now that I'm able to nurture myself, make sure I have my basic needs met, food, shelter, clothing, that's what I would say, basic needs. Then I can start working on other parts that I missed in my childhood, like sense of self-esteem, and Maslow has this up on 1, 2, 3, 4, confidence, achievement. Well, I didn't get the foundation for self-esteem, confidence, sense of achievement, respect of others, or respect by others. I was mirrored from my parents, their dysfunction, their insecurity. So I started off with the basic needs pretty much met. In my childhood, I say, we never really went hungry a lot, and the utilities weren't turned off that much. So I was lacking those basic needs in my childhood. And what I learned is that a sense of security is the need for a consistent security is a false endeavor. In other words, if I understand now that there's a lot of things that can happen to take away everything that I have. Could be a natural disaster, could be economic something, could be I lose my job. I create my sense of security. I make myself safe. Especially with men, anytime two men are having a conversation, or let's say an argument, what's in the back of our minds is that this could go to physical altercation. That's the message I got. When two men talk, they know that there's a probability in the back of your mind subconsciously that this could go to. So there's no, how do I make myself safe in that? That's my job. When I went to my bachelor's re-education class, one of the things in the curriculum was the concept that I make my own safety. How do I make myself safe? And it could be leaving a tense situation instead of engaging in a tense situation. That's my job. For me to understand that, I needed to work through a lot of my trauma. And I did that in the meeting room, in the 12-step room, in whatever workshop I went to. And that really kicked in when I started teaching, when I became a drug and alcohol counselor and a facilitator of process groups. I started learning that, number one, I determine my safety. And see, that sense of self-assurance or sense of confidence, I didn't get built into me when I was a child. I have this saying, absolute vulnerability is absolute power. And what I mean by power is the number of choices I have in any given moment. That's how I equate my power, is the ability to choose, have options. Before my recovery, I had two: run or hit it, get into some physical altercation. Now that I've gone through my recovery work and I've dealt with a trauma, subconscious trauma, I know that in any situation, I have a multitude of options, and that it's my, I'm going to use the word responsibility, to ensure my safety, because this world is not safe. If we know that we're vulnerable, then we're alert to options. So it's like a lot of these modalities they talk about, and this is I want to offer good information, and they leave out family of origin dysfunction, childhood trauma, subconscious pool of information that is driving behaviors that seem irrational, or like an addict trying to stop using, finds that he can't, and he finds himself back into whatever the addictive behavior, substance or alcohol. That is non-rational, below the conscious level. And see, that trauma needs to be addressed before we can have what I think is, what would I say, relevant conversation about all these things. See, practical conversation.
Helpful.
Yeah, because my trauma keeps me from hearing certain things that are not in alignment with the trauma, like people are not trustworthy. Well, that's subconscious, and yet I'm seeing you, I know you, and I should exemplify behaviors that show that I'm trustworthy and I trust you. Well, then I got a trauma in here where one thing you raise an eyebrow. And in my childhood, somebody raised an eyebrow and I got smacked, or I got chastised, or I got abused. So taking that into consideration, well, what I've learned is I'm not safe, and I can be aware of my environment and be proactive in that awareness to do the best I can for my safety. Like if I feel tension in a room and I'm not sure where it's coming from, I don't have to fix it. I can simply move away from it. That's making myself safe. So I don't know, what do you think?
Well, Okay, let's start at the basics, because where I'd like us to go here is to demonstrate how the accountability practice can get me to the point that you just declared for yourself, which is I make my own safety. And so one of the things that I heard you say that is probably a good place to start is that if in my family of origin, I had trouble with these physiological needs getting met consistently in such a way that I, as a little kid, felt secure in their being met, that I could count on them being met.
Right.
So what Maslow says is that once that little kid gets to that point of confidence, then he starts or she starts paying attention to this next level of safety. So what had occurred to me as you were sharing is that if I am not getting these needs met consistently, then that is what causes trauma. Those are traumatic experiences.
Yes.
And post-traumatic stress disorder comes from, particularly the complex version, comes from this being happening all the time, and my little body reacting at heightened alert and stress levels in the attempt to find homeostasis, as he says here, or security of the body. So what Maslow doesn't say here, and or at least the person who put this chart together here doesn't say, is that the lack of these things being met are the cause of trauma. And and here's the problem that, or the challenge that we have as adults, is that we don't stop growing when our needs aren't met. So I'm a 1-year-old and my needs aren't met, then I become 2 and I become 4 and I become 10 and so forth and so on. So over time, the inability for me to get these needs met only compounds my internal stress, and it also results in me creating a level of defense against the sense that there's something wrong with me, that my needs aren't being met. And then from there, we grow into adulthood and we find ourselves behaving in ways that, as you do when you start your weekly meeting, find ourselves thinking things like the old, if I find myself in the middle of an argument, realizing that the other side was correct and I continue to argue that the side I'm now in disagreement with anyway.
Right.
And in other words, finding ourselves run by some invisible internal compulsion.
Yes.
So what I thought so I'm going to take this off here. What I thought we might do then is explore this question of how do I, given that all that's true, how do I create my own safety? How do I use the accountability practice to take responsibility for generating my own sense of safety, regardless of what it is that regardless of the realm in which I would want to feel safe.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. Okay. And that's what the accountability, intentional living accountability tree process offers is, let me use my burnt toast analogy. I say, when the toast is burnt and I'm having breakfast, I'm a 35-year-old man, and the toast is burnt, I flip out. I'm like screaming, yelling, and it's not in alignment with what's happening. It's the toast is burnt. Now, in my house, food was scarce. My mom went shopping 1 time a week, and then we ate until it was gone, and then we ate scraps until it was time to go shopping again. Okay, so destroying food. Now, I can't remember the details about this, but the kitchen was not a safe place. The kitchen was not a safe place. So if I spilt something, there went 35 cents. And somebody got mad, chastised, screamed, yelled from their trauma. And then I took that on as a child and settled into my subconscious, simmered into my subconscious, so that when I'm an adult, something similar, the frequency or the event is similar to what happened to me as a child, that kicks in and it hits into my reticular activating system. We talk about that net-like group of cells that filter out non-essential information based on what my focus is. And that little child's focus is, don't spill the milk, don't burn the toast, because you'll get slapped. So when the toast comes burnt, that kicks in, and I'm like, I'm not even in the picture anymore. And complicated post-traumatic stress disorder, when something happens like that, even though it's innocuous in the present moment, to that child, it is a death threat. Survival mechanism kicks in. I jump into an adrenaline rush, fight, flight, freeze, please. And I don't know what's going on. So I'm screaming and yelling. The people around me are going, "What's wrong with you?" And I haven't got a rational explanation. I do now, because I know all this stuff. But when I was doing it, it was irrational. And the only thing I could do was either say, there's something wrong with me, I'm sorry. And that's where one of the questions I have is, you ever hurt somebody you loved, regretted it, and then did it again? Well, I regretted the outburst. And then the next morning, the toast was burning. It's like, oh, there it goes again. It's like, and that was unresolved childhood trauma. When I realized in my recovery, sitting in the adult children of alcoholics 12-step rooms, that I grew up in a war zone. And a lot of it was around food, money, and be good. Be a good boy. Don't rock the boat. So if anything happens in my adult life that triggers, I don't like the word triggers, but ignites that or initiates that old trauma, my body goes into a survival mode. And my choice usually was to fight, because I didn't want to flee and look like a damn sissy. And grown men don't freeze. And I'm not sorry. It's like, I'm not going to say I'm sorry, because that doesn't fit the man image. And on we go. So I'm sorting this out. You're sorting this out. And then now the toast is burnt. I go, oh, is there something wrong with the toaster? Oh, do you need help? How you doing this morning? It's like I can remain present in the room with a person. Or if I spill something, just yesterday I was doing something and my roommate left a glass of tea on the water and I knocked it over. I just went, oh, I knocked it over, I picked it back up. Oh, shoot, that was quick. I saved a little bit. I was perfectly fine with knocking that over. When he comes in, I'll tell him, I'm sorry about your eyes. It's in the bottom of the sink right now. I spilled your. Before that would have been, oh my God, what is he going to say? And this adrenaline rush, and I would have been working, maybe go get the tea and get some ice cubes, make sure it doesn't look like it. Oh my God. So let's get back to safety. How in the hell are you safe in that and you don't know it? And then somebody comes up to you and says, you need to be safe. I need to be safe. And you look around, rationally, that makes sense. I'm in a safe room, the temperature's right, got people walking around, I know, and I'm stuck with this trauma that I don't know when it's going to go off. It's like I mentioned, you raised an eyebrow. I mean, I'm serious. If I was talking in a group of people and somebody raised their eyebrow, I freaked out. I wanted to leave. I wanted to get out. I didn't know what was going on. Sometimes people would tell jokes and I'd look around first to see if other people thought it was funny, because I didn't want to be wrong. This is crazy. So what I learned is, when I'm aware of my behaviors coming from my subconscious and I deal with them, heal. That's in the accountability. I just yelled at you because I dismissed you. I threatened you because the toast was burnt. It was my choice. And I own that behavior. And I say, it is my intent to be aware. It is my intent to be kind. It is my intent to be attentive. And I start changing over a period of time. Then it's like, now I know that I'm responsible for my safety, because I have that sense of confidence based on my healing. And it's like I don't freeze anymore. It's like, I remember with my children, if I yell at them, they would freeze. I remember that now. And now I understand that I was simply passing on the intergenerational, simply. I was passing on the intergenerational trauma, and I didn't know it. In retrospect, I can see how that happened. And now I can be accountable. I can be accountable to them so that they know whatever obsession or frenetic place they find themselves in, it's due to the same reason I was, and I can help them heal. So one of the things I learned in my batteries re-education class that I took was that it is my responsibility to keep myself safe. If I feel this adrenaline, and we were taught how to recognize when we're getting out of our body into our adrenaline rush, it was my job to take a breath. It was my job to stay present. And I got that through the intent of being accountable for my behaviors, violent behaviors, and with the intent to stop my violent behaviors. And in that process, I don't know, became lucid more. I'm lucid today. It's very rarely that I find myself in a place where I'm not lucid or able to be proactive in my life, no matter what's going on around me. And before my recovery, had no idea this was going on. I just knew people were dangerous subconsciously, and my behaviors of isolation, you might call it eccentric behavior, kind of like what's John doing? What's going on with John? Because I'm like in this my own little fear world, and nobody else is there with me. So I don't know.
You know, it might be a good idea, particularly for the newcomer, for us to talk, to just take a moment out and talk about what we mean by safety in this context.
Yeah.
Because it's not, so I'm going to just set this up, and then you can knock it out of the park, or you can swing and miss, whatever. But I would assert that safety is both an observational reality in our heads, a conceptual, but it's also simultaneously a feeling state.
Yes.
And I think I often would get twisted in that because I couldn't see them as working together.
Correct.
And so I could think I was safe, and my body would be going, no.
Yeah.
And particularly, you actually helped me through one quite some time ago, where I was having a challenge with a friend of mine, and my mind said there's nothing wrong, and my body said I don't want to go meet with this person.
Right.
And so maybe we should maybe you could take a minute out and just talk a little bit about what we mean by safety in the context of this discussion, and particularly with respect to recovering from childhood trauma.
I don't actually know. I'm going to give you the best I got.
Yeah. I'll take that.
It is my awareness that I could be safe, snug as a bug in a rug, and I wouldn't know it. I would see a question as a threat. And I'm in my home with a loving person next to me in a situation that's, I want to say, normal, innocuous. I don't like the word normal. Typical. And I don't know it. I'm always, we call this hypervigilance. I'm always looking for something to happen. And I think that's how I get my safety, is controlling everybody around me. And this is all subconscious. I'm doing it, but I don't know I'm doing it. So my safety is dependent on what's going on out there, because I have no control over it. I'm reactive, not proactive. Now I see what's going on out there. I don't judge it. I just see it, observe it, and I'm proactive in my safety. If I walk into a room, and I worked at the jails, and you can cut the tension with a knife. I pay attention. There's something going on. I can't see, hear, taste, touch, smell it, And I know I'm paying attention to that feeling tone and taking caution. That's safety. That's me making myself safe. Where before I'd go in there, I would dismiss it and engage. Where now I would, why would I want to engage in that? But see, I didn't know that. I made myself unsafe by not feeling, not being connected to my feeling sense, my emotional feeling body, and I put myself in harm's way. That is unsafe. Now, to make myself safe in that is an impossibility. It can't happen because I'm not even aware of where I'm at. I'm stuck in my childhood reaction place. So now I know that I can make myself safe. If something happens right now, like a loud noise, I would simply go and investigate. I might, depending on the degree of it, run to the door unless it's an earthquake. I don't know. I have action. I am not a victim. I know that now. Before, my whole subconscious motivation was, you're a victim. People are going to harm you. People treat you bad. People are dishonest. People are not trustworthy. People hurt you. And I didn't know it. So I tried to make up for it. And that's putting myself in harm's way. Especially with men who swear they're not vulnerable. I'm tough. I'm strong. Well, okay. No. Yes, you are, but no. You're vulnerable. We're all vulnerable. Human beings are vulnerable to the weather, vulnerable to harm. We're fragile. We get in an automobile accident, we could die. Just walking across the street, we could die. We're vulnerable. If I know I'm vulnerable, then I'm cautious. That's it. Had before.
So I still want to drill down into the actual state of being here. So based on what I heard you say, what's the distinction, would you say, between allowing myself to be vulnerable, being willing to be vulnerable, and feeling threatened?
Well, if I'm saying I'm not vulnerable, I'm tough, then I wouldn't recognize it. I would see it as a challenge or a disrespect. I would judge it as something that it's not. It's like you can say to almost any man who doesn't have this information, you're a punk. And that guy will light up like, how dare you? Marty, somebody comes up and says, John, you're a punk. And I go, I know, I've been through that. I know I've dealt with that trauma that says, don't be weak. I'm a human being first, planet Earth, carbon-based life form. Then I'm gender. I know, maybe this is the key. I now know who I am. Before I had an image, tough guy, don't anybody disrespect you. You're the man of the house. You wear the pants in the family. Fix it. I would do that, and anybody could knock me off my pedestal. Now I went from man of the house, wear the pants in the family, to the man in the house. I'm participating with all the inhabitants of the house. As a man, I have the qualities as a man, but that doesn't give me any privilege or authority to dictate. It's a cooperative thing now. I don't know if that helped.
So let's go back to the burnt toast.
Okay.
So this is what I'm trying to get at. In the instance before you had any idea about the origins of the reaction.
Right.
When the toast was burnt, is it not fair to say that you were experiencing threat? That emotional adrenaline rush was a defense mechanism against some threat, not that the adult
Right.
The adult's never going to be threatened by burnt toast,
No,
but someone within was threatened by
yes,
burnt toast. Therefore, in this case, the sense of threat is the opposite of a sense of safety.
yes,
So threat means I have to jump into action, I have to respond, I have to defend. Therefore, I have to be in alert, I have to have stress, I have to be in stress in order to motivate all of my defenses.
yep,
And so this is what I'm trying to get at, is in trying to understand this notion of safety. And maybe we have to first understand what not safe feels like in order to then come to because what you're saying, so I'm responsible, say I make my own safety, is not going to make sense to anybody who hasn't figured out how he or she makes his or herself unsafe.
okay. So the reaction of the burnt toast, the unrealistic reaction, screaming, yelling, I simply own that. I don't judge it, I don't blame it. I simply say that was abusive. What I just did, raising my voice, that was threatening. It was my choice from someplace inside me. I thought that was a good idea. I have no idea what it was, but I do know that if I'm not responding at the same level of the event and I raise my energy, there's something in me that's unhealed. So if I see that as now an indicator that there's an opportunity to heal, accountability tree, I just simply own, I violated you. I raised my voice, I threatened you. And I take a breath, and that validates that mechanism that is terrified. We don't know what, maybe I don't eat that day, or maybe I get sent away from the table and I go to bed hungry. I don't know what happened. Some of those things happen. So now it's like, it puts me in real time. Wow. Okay, I see that came from an unresolved trauma. When I owned the behavior, I was threatening, I raised my voice, violent. And I say, it is my intent to be nonviolent or to be kind. That heals the internal, so that next time, I don't know if this is answering your question, the next time the toast is burnt, I simply move to proaction. I know that we have enough toast, we have enough bread. We don't just have one loaf for 3 days with 4 boys and a man working and a woman. We don't just have one loaf of bread. I can go out and buy more bread. Not that I buy bread, but I have food. That little child didn't know that. So when I own my behavior, as a child, I got attached that I was my behavior. So if this owning, being accountable, gives me the sense that I'm not my behaviors, that was hurtful, the next time I will. And I come to that homeostasis, it's on the bottom of the list, so that I can see now, oh, it was my perception of what happened that was coming from my inner child or my wounded self or my trauma, that is now healed through simply validating myself. I was violent, and that came from trauma. Okay, it is my intent to be kind. And I know this sounds simple, but when I own I'm mean, take a breath, it is my intent to be kind, is actually what we call in adult children of alcoholics, that loving parent that I didn't get when I did spill the milk. And I, oh, okay, let me help you clean that up, instead of, oh my God, whatever happened. And then I got a sense that the behavior I wasn't going to be chastised or punished for the behavior. I was seen for who I was. And now I wasn't able to see myself for who I was, because I mirror neurons. I picked up their energy, owned it. And I think the most insidious thing about childhood trauma is that we get attached to our value is in our behavior. So we're hyper vigilant about doing it right all the time, and that's impossible. So we are in this fight, flight, freeze, please place, and it's subconscious. We don't know. We don't know. This process validates that I was not nurtured. I was not fed 24/7 as a child. And how many times does it take to be hungry and not know where your next meal is coming from to produce trauma? If it's one, okay, I lived in a concentration camp environment. It happened multiple times. Or not having enough covers in the bed, waking up in the morning when it's freezing cold and there's no heat. What do you, for a child, that's life threatening. That's trauma. Unless I'm nurtured through that, like come in here, cuddle up with me, let's throw some blankets around us and get warm, and this sucks. Yeah, this is terrible that we don't have heat. Instead, I was, get ready to go to school. How come you haven't any dinner? What's wrong with you? How come you're complaining? We're doing we do all this and you just, all that stuff. So did I get closer that time?
Well, let me feed back what I at the high level, what I'm hearing you say is that the road to the capacity to create my own safety lies in recognizing and working on healing my traumas.
Yes.
So those two things got to go together.
Got to go together. See, I'm giving to myself what my parents were unable to give.
Right.
I'm not blaming them. They did the best they could. But now as a adult person, I'm nurturing that scared little boy. I'm saying, oh, that was threatening. I was threatening. Okay, I intend to be kind. It was like, and I'm not judging when I say I'm mean or I just violated you. I'm just stating what happened based on where I'm at. No judgment, no blame. And I'm with somebody who understands this process because we've talked about it. And Peter Levine works with traumatized children. And his goal, the way I see it, and I'm going to paraphrase this, and he works with children and he gets the children back into the state of trauma. And then he immediately nurtures that child in that state so that it becomes resolved, so the child knows that it is cared for, knows that it's safe. Just like I see my grandson when he hurts his knee or something happens, he runs to his mother and she'll just hold him and he'll put his head on her shoulder and cry until he whimpers out. And it's like, that's what I didn't get. See, knowing that I have, that I'm safe as a child means I can now do that for myself. Not knowing that as a child, I'm frenetic. I'm like, and I don't know any of this is going on. That's the insidious part. So healing the trauma gives me the ability to be proactive in any moment. It's as simple as I can say it.
Well, one of the things that I've noticed in my own life is that as I struggle to explain in words what feeling safe feels like, that what keeps coming back to me is I'm feeling comfortable in my own skin. I'm feeling comfortable in my own skin. So when I'm comfortable in my own skin, I can assess whether something's a threat or not, and therefore respond appropriately.
Yes.
So when the burnt toast shows up, I can go, oh, look, there's burnt toast. I could even feel that jolt of energy and go, oh, there's that jolt of energy. I love myself.
Yes. Yes.
I give myself permission to have this jolt of energy, and I'm just going to scrape the burn off the toast or whatever. I'm going to make whatever it is.
Yeah.
So for me, that the sense of safety, sometimes it almost sounds like a defensive thing. I need to feel safe.
Right.
To restate that as I choose to be comfortable in my own skin.
Yes.
And is often the case in our work here, I may not know what that's going to be. So when I work through the accountability tree and I own the traumatic feeling, the traumatic energy, I'm scared, I'm anxious, whatever it is. The toast is burnt, and this is the feeling state that I'm experiencing right now. No
Right.
blame, no judgment. I'm feeling scared and trapped, whatever. Take a breath and then ask myself, what do I want?
Right.
What do I want? Oh, so what I've learned to say is when the response to that question shows up as I want to feel safe, I say, I want to feel comfortable in my own skin.
Yes.
Because that's how I know I'm safe. Because I'm not on hyper alert. I'm comfortable, and I'm ready to go on alert when I need to, and otherwise I'm not.
Yes.
So we were in our accountability practice meeting last week, and a part of our check-in is what have I learned about myself, and I was just running through my experience, and what popped up is what I've learned is I feel safe in the world.
Yes. Wow.
I feel safe in the world, and I don't know that I ever said that before.
Wow.
Like, yeah. Does that mean there aren't threats? No, that's not what that means.
No.
So because I want to circle back to the very beginning of the conversation for, again, particularly the newcomer, the capacity to generate a sense of safety in myself comes from my willingness to work through these traumas, to allow them to presence themselves in a feeling state. And as you've said many times in this podcast, when that occurs, now I've got an alignment between what I believe and what I feel, because now my believing mind can see something that I wasn't seeing before.
Correct.
By being open to just experiencing fear, angst, anxiety, whatever it is. It doesn't matter. This is another thing I learned from you, is it doesn't matter what the feeling is. What matters is to allow it to express.
Right.
Because the reparenting that we're doing for ourselves, this is, I can't stress this enough, is we have trauma because the negative, painful feelings that we had as children were not allowed to just flow through and like you were talking about your grandson, just sort of whimper out on their own accord. No, we were repressed. We were told, shut up. Who do you think you are? Don't you know what I've done for you? All of those things, which has at least for me, it had the result of stuffing feelings into my gut. And some people, it stuffs into our lower back. Some people it stuffs into our neck. So we actually will have physical symptoms. Some people, it turns into cancers or other kinds of disruptions of the physical body. And so the capacity to just allow those things now to flow, just allow them to flow, is huge. And that's part of how I feel safe in the world, is because I've learned to allow traumatic experiences to be present. I've learned to not try to stop them.
Right.
So I had an experience of spilling something this morning. I knocked over the sugar bowl.
Oh.
And unlike you, because I'm just not the master that you are, I'm like yelling. I'm like, fuck this, fuck this. But I knew I was doing it.
Yes.
And I was doing it to let the energy out. There wasn't anybody present here, so I wasn't threatening anybody. I was just feeling this rush of adrenaline, so I just let it out.
Yeah.
And when I was done, I just laughed.
There you go.
So, okay, well, how did that work? Is the sugar back in the bowl?
if I stub my toe, get out of the shower, if I haven't slammed my door in a car door, but if I bump something or I hit something, or something falls on my toe, I say, ouch. I just simply say, ouch.
Yeah, ow.
Ow. And before I go, dumbass, what the hell's wrong with you?
Right.
How can you left that there? I can't understand why people don't just clean up their own mess. I went into this tirade instead of feeling the pain.
Yeah.
And my experience is, the pain validated quells. The pain attacked throbs. And it gets worse because I'm not, see, my grandson is allowed to feel his disappointment without chastisement. I was never allowed to express disappointment without being told I was wrong. What's wrong with you? We work
Right.
hard, all that stuff. And now I can express my fear. I'm afraid. It doesn't matter what's going on in the room. Nothing's going on in the room. But and I'm afraid. No. And then I remember saying I'm afraid one time. Somebody said, "Whoa, don't be afraid." And I said, "Whoa, stop! Don't you take that away from me. Don't you dare take that away. That's my fear." And I knew that if I felt it, there would be a resolve there. And I don't. It's like there was nothing in the environment that would substantiate that level of fear. And yet I validated, I'm afraid right now. I'm terrified right now. And I took a breath. And when the person said, "Oh, no, this is valuable to me to experience this, because it's either something I'm not paying attention to in my right now, or it's an old fear coming up looking for my appreciation and attention. And I'm going to give it to it. I'm going to say, I'm afraid. I'm going to say that hurt, especially when I stubbed my toe on that shower railing thing. It hurts. Ouch." And take a breath, and the pain subsides because it's been validated. I remember hitting my finger I was holding a nail, and I hit this finger, and I went into a rage. That thing swelled up, throbbed for I don't know how. And now if I do something, I haven't done anything that extreme because I'm not picking up hammers anymore. But when I hurt myself, I simply acknowledge, wow, that hurt. I don't go to dumbass, what's wrong with you? You shouldn't have put that there. I wouldn't have tripped over it. I hurt, that hurt. So safety, that produces safety, a sense of I can take care of myself. And now we can talk about emotional pain. An example of that, I come home late, I get asked a question in a not so calm voice, "Where the hell have you been?" Before I'd go into a tirade. Now it's like, "Oh, let me tell you where I've been. I see you're concerned for me and that you love me and that you were worried about me. Let me tell you. And I want to be accountable for not calling you." And I'm with that person now, instead of thinking she's trying to like emasculate me and all this stuff that I used to think from my childhood trauma and the image I built of myself as this is the way a man's supposed to be. I don't know what a man's supposed to be. I'll tell you when I get there what my response is. I'm a human being, a feeling, emotional human being, and I'm fallible. I don't hold myself to the standard I held myself to, and that is safe. Just that, not expecting myself to get everything right, not spill the milk, not spill the sugar, not spill the tea. And oh, okay, I'll pay attention next time. And in fact, I joked about it with my roommate, and I said, "Check your tea out. There's not as much as there was before." And he said, "Oh, no problem." I said, "Yeah, I know it's not a problem anymore." So
this capacity to build up a sense of safety internally is a product of this discipline of doing this work in a committed, regular, daily approach.
yes,
That because God knows I have an opportunity every single day that something's going to arise in my awareness that is not going to be commensurate with what's going on out there. That there's some emotional memory is going to be triggered or instigated by something that I see or hear, an eyebrow.
right.
Now I welcome that. So it is a way for me to continue to release that unhealed trauma.
Yes.
By
Wow.
working
Yeah.
the tree. How am I feeling? So it's like this, it's like with the toe stubbing. How am I feeling? Ow. What do I want? I want relief. I want ease. I want serenity, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then say, okay, I intend to feel at ease. And there's a certain, particularly with this painful stuff, there's a certain, the capacity to do that is kind of the equivalent of your daughter letting your grandson cry about the stub toe or the little cut
Mhm.
finger or whatever.
Yeah,
And somehow there's a healing of that pain that happens that's not coming from applying salve or anything. It's a psycho-spiritual healing that
yeah.
translates into a physical sense of well-being.
And he can trust his feelings. They don't become something that becomes the enemy. Don't do that. You'll get hurt, because he
Right,
knows that he can express pain, hurt, and he'll be nurtured. He won't
right.
be chastised, or he won't be told, hey, little man, be tough. Yeah, you gotta learn how to take that shit. No, 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 please don't learn that. Learn that your body is your friend, and it's going to give you information, and pay attention to it, nurture it, and love it.
Yes. So one of the things that, as we come to the end of our time together, that I've been contemplating for some time now in the last couple of months is that the trauma of my youth, my childhood, my adolescence, essentially created a sense within myself of being at war with myself.
Yeah.
And that, that voice that yells at me, that's my voice yelling at me.
Yeah.
And so that the accountability practice is a practice of creating peace and healing this, what seems to be a rift between warring factions within me.
Correct.
And so I can say I feel safe in the world because I feel safe within myself.
Yes.
That whenever the sense of warfare shows up, and it does, it no longer leads to violence. It no longer leads to emotional violence that I do to myself. It leads, in fact, to healing.
Yes.
It's like, oh, okay, oftentimes it'll be something that seems, I can tell I'm out of sync with what's going on in front of me. So I've trained myself through this work to ask, say, what's really going on?
Yeah.
What's really going on? What's the issue here?
Yeah.
And for the most part, I can pretty easily work back to the core issue, hiding in the darkness, and bring it into the light, and then just do my healing work. Okay, that I get it. I give myself permission to be pissed off, scared, crazy, whatever. What do I want?
Yep.
And then just set the intention and move on.
And move on.
And
yeah.
as we do this more and more over the years, this shift that we want for ourselves becomes embodied.
Good word. The trauma was embodied, created the reaction out of alignment with the event. It was embodied. If you own it, feel it, heal it. I intend to be kind. I intend to be kind. That embodies the nurturance that I didn't get. And I start automatically doing things differently. The response time is filled with kindness, is permeated with nurturance, is permeated with appreciation and attention to myself. So now and I'll give you this example. I know we're getting close to time. I was almost in an accident, and I won't go into the details, but when I got through, it was real close. I don't know how I didn't get in an accident. And when I looked in the rearview mirror, my first response was, I hope they're okay. And I just like, oh, there it is. It works. Because any other time I would look back there in the dumbass, and what do you think you're doing? And I'm going to run you off the road, and I'm going to show you your. No. The first response, I hope these people are okay. That's safe. I would say I almost got in an accident, and I was able to keep myself in a safe, cogent or lucid place, where my first thought was concern and compassion. Wow. Now, is anybody going to pull out in front of me? Am I safe on the road? Hell no. I got to pay attention. I got to know I'm not safe, so that I now, when I first heard this defensive driving, I thought that's crazy. Don't defense nothing. I'm going. It's like, I thought that was weak. No, defensive driving is safety. and I produce it. It comes from me. So, wow.
Well, I appreciate your thoughts on this today. I don't know that we've exhausted the subject, so we can revisit it in the future, because it's really important to our recovery, to have that sense that I'm okay the way I am.
Yeah.
And that when something appears as a threat, I have the capacity to deal with it.
Yes.
It's not, it's just like the driving things. Like, I have the capacity to drive defensively.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have anything to do with eliminating threats. Doesn't mean that speeders or people who change lanes carelessly aren't going to do that anymore. No, that's always going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I have the capacity to pay attention and prepare.
Correct.
And
Yeah.
and do that calmly.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then it becomes subconscious.
Yes.
It becomes part of me.
Yeah.
So that when I'm in that near accident, like the one that you just reported, my response is not a response of fear, but a response of care and compassion.
Right. Exactly.
It's like,
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, I like that.
Well, I think that's a good note to wrap this up on today.
Okay.
Any final thoughts before we close it down?
I appreciate you, Marty, and this opportunity to I don't know, what do you call it? Explore these things, and I'm grateful for the grace that's been given to me, so that I now understand what I understand, and then that I can now offer that as best I can to whoever is willing to listen. So,
I'd say amen.
yeah, amen.
And before I hit the button, I just want to do a couple things. First of all, I want to shout out to Cindy for being our editor and our YouTube uploader. I appreciate you, and you do a great job, and you jump on it every week and get it up. So thank you so much for your generosity and your professionalism. And also, for anybody that would like to participate in a accountability practice meeting, there are now 5 a week, on every day of the week, but
Friday.
Sunday and Friday.
Correct.
So if you're interested in any of those, please, John's email or my email will be in the closing credits. Please just shoot us a note, and we'll be happy to send you the link. They're all on Zoom, so you can, doesn't matter where you are. Well, it might matter if you live in India, you have to do it in the middle of the night, but other than that, please feel free to join us. And if you come to a meeting, you don't have to participate in any way, shape, or form. You can just listen, or you can jump in and do some work. It's up to you. So we welcome anybody that would like to find out more about the practical way to find how to create your own safety. Come to a meeting, and we'll be happy to work on that with you.
Yes.
So until next time, thank you, John.
Thank you, Marty.
And just remember, burnt toast is just burnt toast.
Just burnt toast is simply burnt toast. Okay.